Welcome to 10 tips and tricks for playing Going Medieval, my fellow gamers. My name is Peter and I'm going to show you tricks on how to survive summer heat waves and winter's biting cold while having food during each season. Also, I will explain how to tend villagers' wounds, find iron, hunt, harvest a lot of wood, and make new types of food alongside a bunch of other tips about basements, fighting bandits, crafting, and building. One thing you might not realize before playing Going Medieval is that seasons in this game last for only 12 days. Since the regular game mode starts you off in the spring, you only have those first 12 days to prepare for summer, which brings more than a few changes to the gameplay. Similarly, autumn is another 12 days of preparation for winter, which also brings new mechanics for the player to deal with. If you want to learn how to make a proper start on a new map during spring, check out my previous guide on Going Medieval after you have watched this video, because in this one I will be more focused on summer and winter. As you near summertime, this is the appropriate time to start planting fields. And one of the first fields you should plant is a tree nursery. Of course, to do any planting, you have to research agriculture by spending chronicles on it written on the basic research table. The reason you need a tree nursery is because you want to secure a large number of close-by trees that you can cut down for wood, as this is your main construction and crafting material. It is spent on everything from floor tiles, defensive structures, to fuel for cooking. If you were to just keep cutting down nearby trees, you will quickly deforest your whole map. So you might end up wanting to plant a lot of new trees, but you have to be mindful of the amount of time that would take. Try to keep it realistic and manageable for your villagers, especially if you do not have several villagers who have a high botany skill, which is crucial for this job. Even with those villagers helping them grow, trees will take quite a number of days to grow to maturity, the point when they yield the most wood after being cut down. Make sure to cut them all at that point and stockpile wood where it won't rot. But to keep your food from rotting in the hot summer days, you need a basement. Because this game world is divided into layers, temperature is dependent on the layer you are on. If you leave food at the ground level, it will decompose faster at the high room temperatures in summer. At the lower levels, temperature doesn't go up as high, provided you wall it and tile it off from the ground level. This is why you have to dig down into the ground using the mining tool and villager's skill. You open up the first lower level one tile at a time, adding a staircase so that your villagers can go down. Once you have dug a large enough space, you need to tile the floor to prevent soil from degrading your food. Then you are safe to place a new stockpile and enable only raw food, meals, and healing supplies on it. You can also allow animal carcasses and drinks to have everything in one place. To completely seal off the room from outside temperature fluctuations, add a door, walls, and top tiles. Once completed, it gains a spare room status, and you can even check its temperature in the bottom right menu. If you want to, you can dig up some extra space, place a table and chairs, and have a dinner room inside your food basement. It might just get a bit chilly in the winters. During summer, you will be faced with heat waves. These are days when the temperature will get quite uncomfortable, especially for your villagers who wear winter clothing and have no hats. The hats you can make easily enough using a tailor, appropriate workbench, and some hay, but the summer clothing will take way too much time for you to do in your first year. I will go into gear and clothing crafting a lot more in one of my next videos about Going Medieval. If you have been enjoying this one thus far, please consider hitting that like button, telling me what other subject to explain about this game, and subscribe to get notified when I post that next video. Besides summer clothing, there is another way you can help your villagers avoid heat waves much more directly. You can change their sleep schedule to coincide with the hottest hours of the day. If you live in a moderate climate like me, you probably never thought of having a schedule like this. But for places I visited on my summer vacations like Greece, Egypt, Tunis and Cuba, this is standard practice. Work in the early morning, sleep through the middle of the day and get back out there in the evenings. As hot summer days pass and autumn approaches, it is a good time to start hunting so you can prepare some dried meat for winter. These forests are full of game. There are rabbits, deers and the occasional wolf. But first you need to make sure you have researched the appropriate tech to unlock food preservation and clay smokehouse with it. Clay can be dug up or collected on the map, so this is not a problem. The butchering table is there from the start of the game. You will need to construct both to prepare meat. Then it's time to hunt. This requires ranged weapons, so bows and villagers with good marksman skill if you don't want them missing shots at prey all day long. Do remember to set the priority for hunt job at 1 so that villagers will jump on it. pick a wild animal and use the hunt option at the bottom right. The hunt might go on for a while, but keep an eye on the hunters so that once they do take down an animal, they pick up the carcass and take it to the stockpile near the butchering table. There it is turned into meat, and you have to manually add a task at the smokehouse for it to get turned into an edible long shelf life meat. Another more serious form of combat is against the raiders and bandits. These are inevitable early on as you expand your village with newcomers who are chased by such miscreants. Since you do get ample warning, it is up to you to plan and build your defenses and traps. Because you have both range and melee weapons, it is best to set a field of battle in advance so you can stack the tactical advantages in your favor. Give enemies a wide and open space to attack you from so you can attack them at range for longer. Raiders target your villagers, so place your defenders in such a way that their bows can fire many arrows before the enemy is close to melee range. Even then, by constructing traps, walls and defensive structures, you can keep the attackers bottled up in a confined space so they cannot overrun you. As soon as you kill most of them, the rest will run and flee. This is why keeping them outside of their engagement range is such a useful trick. In each new skirmish, your villagers will inevitably gain multiple wounds. Some of these will require tending. This is a job best done by villagers with a high medical skill. But healing wounds is a tricky job, and so it's best done on a sleeping or convalescing villager. Convalescing is another word for recuperating or resting after an injury, and it is an actual job you can prioritize for hurt villagers. Once again, use the job options to force both tend job as the primary for those with high medical skills and convalescing for those wounded. Changing the schedule is also a good idea so your healer doesn't end up sleeping through his patients bleeding to death, because that can and probably will happen to you. That is just one example of how detailed Going Medieval is, and another reason why I have been enjoying it so much. If you feel like it, tell me in the comment section what aspect of the game you enjoyed the most and what mechanics were a surprise to you. Once you unlock more crafting tables and different workstations, you will start to notice level requirements for certain craftable items. This is why you have to specialize your villagers and play into their strengths, often mostly using skills they can learn the fastest. If you end up lacking skill levels, you may be locked out of producing stronger, better versions of items, be they meals, drinks, weapons or apparel. But that is not the whole story here. Items such as clothing have different quality levels, going from flimsy to good and beyond. And they have an actual negative impact on the mood of your villagers, so you cannot just be satisfied with junk gear. This is where skill level also comes into play, as it increases the chances of producing a high quality item at the work table. You will still produce those ugly flimsy items from time to time, but you can always recycle them for materials to try again. Villagers' drinking habit and corresponding mood modifier provides a great example of the crafting skill level importance in several ways you can satisfy their need with different items. It is a bit longer of a topic, so I will cover it in a separate video. Another very important resource in Going Medieval is iron. It is required for a wide range of construction and crafting in the form of ingots. You mine it as iron nuggets, from which you make iron ingots at a smelting furnace. But the real problem is finding it. First time I ran into this problem, I almost restarted the game thinking I had a bug or there was no iron on my map. But the trick is, it's there. You just can't see it. It's hidden in large veins below top-level limestone deposits, so it takes a bit of guesswork, a lot of elbow grease from the villagers skilled in mining, and true pioneering digs to find it. You can use gold deposits as another telltale sign that there is iron nearby. Because this game has more than a dozen height levels, don't be surprised if the iron vein forces you to make hard turns in your digging and produces weirdly shaped open mines. Start your test digs at the biggest deposits of limestone to reduce the chances of missing that iron vein. Now on the subject of mining, you might find yourself in a situation where you end up stranding your villager inside a mine. Since the poor creatures have yet to discover push-ups, rope, or even making a pile of dirt under their feet, you have to organize a rescue. The simplest way of doing this is by building a new set of wooden stairs. These require 3 uninterrupted tiles underneath them, and the villager cannot be standing on any of them. If you do not have enough space, then you can use the trapped villager to dig extra tiles and free up necessary space for the staircase. Another villager from the top level can bring the required wood, while the trapped villager can build those stairs to get himself out. Staying outside in the winter really does mean freezing your off, as Mormon Senior from the Song of Ice and Fire would say. And to avoid this miserable fate, you have to make sure your villagers are dressed with winter clothing and always close to a heat source, so as few outings as possible. Many of the production workstations do produce heat as they are operated and fuel burnt in them, but to have a stable and constant heat supply, you need to construct braziers. These require some wood and clay and need to be placed everywhere your villagers spend their time. They won't raise the room's temperature too much, but it will go up from freezing to livable. This will help your villagers get through winter with as few negative modifiers as possible. To further help your villagers stay warm while working, you should close up all other workstations inside rooms. Those which don't require a villager's presence during the whole process of item creation, you can leave outside as long as there is a roof above them. And those would be my first 10 tips and tricks for playing Going Medieval. I'm already planning on a new set, but I welcome your suggestions about which to add to the new list. I cover many more games in my guides and how-to videos, so feel free to browse my channel and playlists. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!